What's up, guys? Here are my predictions for UFC 229 happening this Saturday. Possibly the biggest card in UFC history, mainly because of the main event. But looking at the quality of the entire card, it's actually not that bad. It's not the most stacked card I've ever seen, but it's definitely a must-watch card. So we're going to start with the feature fight on the prelims, Sergio Pettis versus Jussier Formiga. Looks like Sean O'Malley was scratched from the card due to USADA violations. So Sergio Pettis is a striker, taekwondo fighter, very similar to his brother, but he's a lot more fundamental with it, and he has way better wrestling defense, way better takedown defense. He's good at scrambling off the ground back to his feet. Doesn't really go for takedowns much. Likes to keep it at a distance. He loves using his jab. He has an amazing right straight. Great head kicks, great side kicks, and I think those side kicks are really going to give Jussier Formiga some problems, as well as the jab. Jussier Formiga is more of a grappler. He has a very dangerous rear naked choke, a very dangerous guillotine. He likes to go for the takedowns. He's going to have to go for takedowns in this fight. He's not going to outstrike Sergio Pettis, but that's where the problem comes. How is he going to get under Pettis? How is he going to close that distance safely? Pettis' jab is going to keep him at bay. His side kicks are going to be there. He might set up his head kicks. And the biggest problem with Jussier Formiga is he's not busy on the feet. He doesn't throw enough on the feet to threaten the opponent for his takedowns. There's no distractions. There's no threat. There's no danger. There's no setups, really. And against a guy like Sergio Pettis, you're going to allow him to get off on the opponent with his strikes and get a lot more loose with his strikes. So I'm going to go with Sergio Pettis. I'm going to go by a decision. I think the sharp, quick strikes from Pettis are going to give Jussier Formiga a lot of problems, mainly because Formiga is going to allow him to get busy. And the takedowns are not going to come easy at all because of this. Then we go to the main card, Michelle Waterson versus Felice Herrig. Now, this fight can be very competitive. You got Michelle Waterson, who's a karate fighter, loves using the side kick to the knee, stomps it, goes to the head as well, like she caught Rose Namajunas with. And it's like a line of defense. If you can get past that line of defense, she's kind of open to a lot of shots. She got openly head kicked by Rose Namajunas once Rose was able to get past that side kick. But the kick is very powerful. She has very powerful kicks. She is developing her boxing like you saw in the Tisha Torres fight, throwing the straight a lot more, throwing the jab a lot more, and she has shown to be a lot faster than Felice Herrig. She loves doing the straight to a lead high kick combination. Hasn't really caught anybody with that yet, but I can see that combination working in her favor against Herrig. The kicks ending the combinations are going to be a problem here. But the real danger from Waterson is on the ground. Her rear naked choke is masterful. Her arm bars are quick. She's very slick on the ground to get the submissions. She will scramble constantly. She will try to transition constantly. Her takedowns are pretty good as well. In the clinch, trips and throws. And for Felice Herrig, she's more of a Muay Thai fighter. Powerful leg kicks. Her punches, though, are quite labored. They're not quick. They're not snappy. They're not powerful. They're pretty slow, to be honest, but she throws it from weird angles. But my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Michelle Waterson. I think she's way quicker than Herrig. I think her punches are going to give Herrig some problems. The side kicks are going to give her a problem. And if she can get Herrig down, I believe Waterson is a more dangerous BJJ artist. So I'm going to go with Waterson. I'm going to go by a decision, but I can see a late submission. Then we go to Derek Lewis versus Alexander Volkov. Now, this is a really fun fight. Derek Lewis, more of a boxer than anything. You can also call him a brawler. Doesn't really throw kicks besides the switch lead kick, which is pretty impressive how he throws that. He hasn't really caught anybody with it yet. And I don't think he's going to catch Volkov, especially because of the height difference and the distance that Volkov keeps. But other than that, Derek Lewis, his stance is very narrow. He stands very straight, and this is why takedowns are easy to get on him. But there's going to be no takedowns in this fight. I'm pretty sure. Lewis has a very precise and powerful right hand, especially the overhand right and the right hook. From a distance, though, he doesn't really get anything off. It's hard for him to fight at a distance because his footwork is not really there. He plods a lot. And he doesn't set up his right hand a whole lot. And in his recent fights, he's been pressured pretty easily. So he's constantly looking for counter right hands. It's going to be hard against a guy who's that long and fights at that kind of a distance like Volkov. Volkov's more of a karate fighter. He has good Muay Thai as well. He has excellent front kicks, excellent round kicks to the legs, to the body, to the head. The distance he's going to keep on Lewis is going to be pretty insane. A bit different than how Marcin Tybura was able to keep it on Derek Lewis. But even then, Tybura, who is a little bit smaller than Derek Lewis, he was able to keep that distance on him. The reason why Lewis clipped him is because Marcin Tybura was initiating the grappling exchanges, and once it got in the clinch, that's what Lewis needed, and started throwing his power at Marcin Tybura, and he only needs one to finish any fight. Volkov doesn't really do that. Volkov loves to strike from a distance. His jab is amazing, his straight is amazing, his uppercuts are amazing. I don't see him throwing many uppercuts in this fight. He threw them against Verdum because Verdum was obviously going for takedowns. In this one, I see a lot of kicks getting thrown from Volkov. The only thing about leg kicks are, he's going to have to watch when Derek Lewis is going to try to counter him with the right hand over the top. But the 47-inch leg reach, with his height being 6'7", Lewis is going to have to reach pretty far to catch Volkov even with that. And Volkov, I believe, is faster than Lewis. So my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Alexander Volkov. I'm going to go by second round TKO. I think the distance is going to decide this fight. And then we go to Ovince St. Preux versus Dominic Reyes. Now, this is a very interesting fight. Both these guys are quite unorthodox. Their patterns are a bit strange. Their timing's a bit strange. OSP is well-rounded, but he does everything quote-unquote technically wrong. He's mostly a southpaw. He has a very powerful left hand. He has a powerful left kick. Doesn't really set them up a whole lot. He will throw a jab, especially when he goes to the orthodox stance, and he will throw his check left hook. It's a lot of left hands from Ovince St. Preux. But he will throw right hands like he did to Patrick Cummings, where Cummings was coming in on him, and St. Preux just threw out this weird right uppercut that you have to watch a replay just to see it come out. Ovince St. Preux's timing is just random, it seems like. There's no pattern to the way he fights. It's just whatever he sees, that's what he goes for. But the real threat from Ovince St. Preux is on the ground with his Von Flue choke. He's very strong on top with his submissions. He got a straight arm bar on a guy like Tyson Pedro, of all people. That's how strong this guy is. And we go to Dominic Reyes, who also has a bit off timing. Doesn't really have a pattern to the way he fights. But the thing about Dominic Reyes is he's a lot more tight and fundamental with the strikes than Ovince St. Preux is. And he has better positional awareness. He is always aware of where he has to be and where he doesn't have to be, and where he can throw strikes and where he can't. He has a powerful right round kick. He has good front kicks as well. He has an excellent uppercut, straight right hand, good jabs. Fundamentally, Dominic Reyes has very good striking. And with this position and how he tricks opponents into thinking he's going to go one way and he happens to go another way, you saw that especially in the Jared Cannonier fight, where he'll move forward like he's going to commit and he throws a right hand and all of a sudden he dips out to his right, fades away, and creates an angle. Or when he's moving back and pressured and he starts moving to his left, all of a sudden he dips to his right. Jared Cannonier thinks, oh, he's going to do it again. He's going to fade out to his right. What happens? He uses that momentum to cock back his right hand, continues to move to his left to create more momentum into Jared Cannonier to intercept him, and catches him with that uppercut. So my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Dominic Reyes. I think Ovince St. Preux is taking a lot of damage in his career. He was dropped in his last fight. He got stunned badly by Lir Latifi. He's been knocked out before. He's been fighting for a very long time, and his unorthodox striking, if you can expect it, it's very hard for him to get anything off on you. Just how Jimmy Manuel was able to do it, Lir Latifi was able to do it, and also Tyson Pedro after getting caught by the front kick to a jab combination. And he has been shown to get caught by head kicks by guys like John Jones, and in his last fight like Tyson Pedro, and Dominic Reyes' kicks are devastating. So I'm going to go with Reyes. I'm going to go by a first round knockout. And then we go to the co-main event, Tony Ferguson versus Anthony Pettis. I love this fight, and I'm very glad to see Tony Ferguson back. He's one of my favorite fighters to watch, and it's amazing to see Anthony Pettis, how he performed in his last fight. Seems to hit a new stride, but it's a bit too early to say so. Now, there's a huge X factor in this fight. How is the injury and the layoff going to affect Tony Ferguson? Because that was a very bad injury. We will never know until the fight comes. So I'm just going to go by thinking Tony Ferguson is going to show up like he always does. So Tony Ferguson, unorthodox, but probably the most well-rounded fighter in the whole division. And we're talking about the lightweight division. But like I said, unorthodox. A lot of stuff he does, just like Ovince St. Preux, is quote-unquote technically or fundamentally wrong in every sense. His offense, his defense, everything he does. He lifts his chin above punches, which is weird and it works for him. They miss his chin because of that. He'll throw a jab and then step forward instead of stepping forward and then throw the jab. He does everything kind of backwards, but it works for him. And it's sometimes hard to catch him, and it's hard to disrupt his timing and disrupt his momentum. And it's mainly because of his output is insane. His cardio is never ending. He has great power, and his reach is uncanny, besides maybe Kevin Lee, in this whole division. So he has an excellent jab, one of the best jabs in the entire division. He has a very powerful straight right hand like you saw against Kakuno, able to knock him out cold before he even hit the ground. His jab is also pretty powerful like he dropped Kevin Lee with. He was moving backwards and he was taking the first round off as a game plan, and he still just threw a jab as Kevin Lee was coming in on him and dropped him. I mean, he has some deceptive power, and he has an insanely long lead uppercut. I mean, he really digs into the opponent with all of his reach. And he's a switch fighter too. He can fight equally in both stances, does the same thing in both stances, which gives guys like Pettis a lot of problems because Pettis loves to get in the opposite stance of the opponent. But what happens when your opponent is constantly switching stances? It just disrupts the kicking of Anthony Pettis because the kicks are only going to come out so fast. Tony Ferguson is going to be pressuring him as well, which is going to throw off the kicks of Pettis. And Ferguson has insanely good BJJ. He sometimes gets in bad positions when he's on his back, but he always happens to thrive. Get opponents in omoplatas. Darce chokes are insanely slick. He has the best Darce choke in the game by far. It's not even close. I mean, he's able to get it from any position on the feet, on the ground, while he's on his back, while he's on top. It doesn't really matter. And Tony Ferguson's insanely tough with insane recovery, even if he gets hit. And then we go to Anthony Pettis, who's a Taekwondo fighter. Amazing kicks, round kicks, side kicks, spinning kicks. Every kick in the book, he has it in his repertoire. He has a very good straight right hand and a left hook, like he saw against Michael Chiesa and Gilbert Melendez. And he's very fast. He would have the speed advantage over Ferguson, but the reach is not going to help him there. He's going to have to cover a little bit more distance to catch Ferguson. But the thing about Pettis is everybody knows his weakness. Wrestling against the cage. Shooting against the cage. Work on him, take him down and control him. And he doesn't do so well backing up. If he's in the center of the cage with you, he can beat almost everybody there. But when he's moving back, his kicks get nullified. That's like 60 to 70% of his attacks. And Ferguson does have the wrestling to take down Pettis, and he definitely has the pressure. Similar to how he did it at Edson Barboza, but the thing about Edson Barboza was, Barboza isn't dangerous going back the way Pettis is. Pettis is kind of dangerous going back with his hands, and he will throw things like cartwheel kicks and he'll jump off the cage and all that sort of stuff. Barboza doesn't really do a whole lot moving backwards. So Tony Ferguson is going to have to keep some distance as he's pressuring Pettis and mind the counterattacks. But Tony Ferguson has really good fight IQ, and even better, he has really good game plans against styles of opponents. He fought Kevin Lee, Edson Barboza, and Rafael Dos Anjos completely different. He bum rushed Edson Barboza and just put a pace on him that Barboza couldn't keep up with. Against Dos Anjos, he took the first round off a little bit just to find the timing, not so much to get RDA tired like he did to Kevin Lee, figure out his timing, and then he started letting off long-range punches and pressured Rafael Dos Anjos while keeping some distance, very similar to what he should be doing here. And against Kevin Lee, took the first round off, put it on him on the second round as Kevin Lee was getting tired. So my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Tony Ferguson. He has too many weapons, his pressure's too much, he's going to eliminate the kicks, or at least a lot of them, with that pressure. His elbows, covering the distance if he has to, are going to be absolutely devastating. His jab is going to give Anthony Pettis a lot of problems. And maybe some front kicks to push him back into the cage. No round kicks because Pettis will counter those. So I'm going to go with Ferguson. I'm going to go by a decision. I think Pettis is tough enough to take a lot of the damage. And then we go to the fight, the main event everybody's waiting for. Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Conor McGregor. Now, before I get into it, I don't want to repeat a whole lot of what I said in my breakdown video. Hopefully, all of you guys saw my breakdown video on this fight. Really in depth, I went into all of it. So I highly recommend you guys checking that video out if you haven't done so yet. As we all know about Khabib, he's a grappler / wrestler. He combines all the grappling styles into his own style. Pretty wild striking. He has a pretty good jab and a pretty good lead uppercut. They call it the eagle punch, which is a perfect name because he kind of soars forward when he throws it out there. His right hand usually is pretty wild. He will reach into it a little bit too much. He has a pretty good front kick, and his single legs are probably his best takedowns from a distance. But when he gets the opponent backing up to the cage, he'll go for any takedowns. He'll drive it right into there. That's his plan. He wants to get it to the cage because in open space, he doesn't have that much success with his takedowns because he doesn't drive with them like guys like Chad Mendes does or something. When he shoots, wherever he lands, that's where the takedown stops, and then he has to continue after that, which is kind of hard to do to guys with good footwork. But he needs to be the one pressuring so he can get it to the cage, and from there he can trip, he can throw, he can go for the double leg, single leg, body lock, all sort of takedowns. And once he gets it to the ground, he's probably the best guy in the UFC in the overall ground game. His ground and pound is second to none. His transitions are second to none. He's one of the only guys I've ever seen that doesn't do anything with the guard. He doesn't even go there. He passes the guard every single time, which is why you hardly ever see him in the guard. He always gets into half guard or side control or the crucifix, which are his best positions by far, so he can get the opponent to shrimp up. He could trap the arm with his knee and start landing huge ground and pound on top. He loves to stand over the opponent doing that. He'll stack on top of the guard, and he is the ultimate stacking artist, I guess you would say, in the UFC. He loves to dive over with punches. He loves to create chaos so he can pass that guard and get right into half guard or side control. And he does it every single time because opponents panic because of his cardio and his output and his power and his weight. It's like he's a middleweight on top of these guys. They cannot shrug him off. Conor McGregor is more of a boxer with good taekwondo kicks, good side kicks to the knee, good oblique kicks, good spinny heel kicks. But besides the side kicks, all the kicks are coming from his left leg, the side kicks are coming from his right leg, and most of his punches are coming from his left hand. He's very left-sided heavy. He will throw a jab sometimes, and he will throw that lead uppercut as he gets on the outside of the opponent's foot with his body, but his punch is still on the center. And he has a ruthless, sniper-like countering game with his left hand. Outside slip to a return left hand, outside slip to a left bolo uppercut, leaning and fading away to counter with the straight left like he did to Jose Aldo. I mean, he has it all with the left hand. His angles are crazy with just that one hand. And Conor has very good reactive footwork. He plods a little bit when nothing's happening, but when something is threatening him or he sees something all of a sudden, he is very quick to move. And it gets a lot of opponents off guard of how quick he moves away. And he creates his angles for his left hand because of that. But this is all a problem with his cardio, or I would say all of his movements are very energy exhausting, because everything he does is super explosive. His footwork is explosive, slips are explosive, dodges are explosive, punches are explosive, defense, offense, everything is explosive. And this is why he starts to gas out after like 2.5 rounds. And Conor's pretty good at keeping his lead leg away, because he does have a very long stance. He's good at keeping it away when opponents go for takedowns, which is kind of impressive how long his stance is able to do that so quickly. Then again, it's the reactive footwork. He's able to move it away so quick. The opponent goes for the single leg and all of a sudden it's not there anymore. Now they have to chain. And that works especially against Khabib's single leg from a distance. And Conor is really good at keeping guard, but he's not good at keeping half guard. And that is a very bad formula to fight Khabib, because Khabib doesn't do anything with a guard and he wants to get into half guard. Every single opponent that's gotten to Conor's half guard has advanced through it within seconds. I'm talking literal seconds. There's never been anybody staying in his half guard longer than like 4 seconds. But in his full guard, he's able to keep guys there for a pretty long time. So my prediction for this fight, it's a very, very tough fight to call. These guys are each other's kryptonite, right? Any mistake will cost the fight. Any mistake. Or should I say any mistake plus the capitalization of that mistake pretty much is going to decide the winner of this fight. It can happen anytime. It can happen in 10 seconds of the fight, 30 seconds into the fight, 2 rounds into the fight. Whenever that happens, the fight is pretty much decided. So it's a tough fight to call, but that doesn't mean it's going to be a close fight. I do not see this being a close fight at all. I see this being an absolute domination on one fighter's side, or a devastating finish. Because what Khabib is good at, Conor is not elite at. And what Conor is good at, Khabib is not elite at, if you know what I'm saying. But that goes to my prediction. I'm going to have to go with Conor McGregor. Now, there are X factors with this prediction, because he is coming off a 2-year layoff, and Khabib has been pretty active, and that is pretty rare in his career. But I'm going to go with Conor McGregor in this one if Conor shows up as the Conor of old, the one we saw in Eddie Alvarez, or even better. And the reason for that is Khabib is not good in open space with takedowns. He does shoot for that single leg pretty far away, and Conor does keep a very far distance, so Khabib's going to have to be there. If Khabib is going to try to pressure Conor the way he pressured someone like Michael Johnson, Johnson's able to catch him with left hands, and Conor's left hands are going to hurt Khabib. And if Khabib tries to pressure with his punches, Conor is very quick to counter even jabs, initial jabs for combinations, let alone an entire sequence of a combination. There's too much punishment with the hands of Conor. And as we saw, Conor is very quick to keep away his lead leg when opponents dive in on them. There's only one problem with that though. When fighters do go for takedowns and he takes his lead leg away, they're able to get in a clinch with him, and that's still what Khabib wants. And Khabib, he will shoot just to back you up to the cage. This all comes down to who's going to back up who. And Khabib will shoot just to back you up. He'll shoot 3 times to back you up to the cage because his goal is to get you to the cage, however means necessary. So if he's missing takedowns, it's still playing to his favor. But here's the thing about the pressure. Khabib is always shown to be pressured in his fights. Almost every single one besides the Barboza fight, because Barboza doesn't pressure opponents. Conor is always the one pressuring opponents because he stands his ground, and Khabib is a mover. Conor plods unless it's a reflex or a reaction. Khabib is always moving around, and he is always the one that's going to initially move back away from opponents. And on the cage, Khabib does not do well. He has huge holes in his striking defense against the cage. He'll throw out winging punches. He relies on the post and retreat, very similar to what John Jones does. And there's a left straight down the middle open for a guy like Conor. It was open for Johnson too. And he was able to catch Khabib with left hands constantly because of that. It's more used for right-handed fighters who throw overhands. Left-handed fighters who throw straight lefts is a bad formula. And Khabib's footwork patterns and the way he just doesn't cut off opponents and the way he follows opponents in a circle is terrible against a guy like Conor. That's way too obvious for Conor to track down. So at the end of the day, I'm going to go with Conor. I'm going to go by his second round TKO. I see him pressuring Khabib in the first round and keeping the distance on Khabib. Khabib might shoot for some takedowns, but I don't see him getting him from that distance. And he could get him from the distance. Maybe he's able to catch Conor off guard with some of those single legs and one takedown from Khabib, and I believe Khabib won the fight. If it gets to the ground, that is. But I see Conor able to keep the distance, land left hands, jabs from a distance on Khabib. Nothing too crazy, but he's going to wait for Khabib to throw out some punch, and Conor's going to look to counter him. I see Khabib taking some shots, and I see in the second round, Khabib gets a little bit more anxious to land strikes, and Conor is able to counter him and finish him off. So let's look at some of the betting odds to see what's interesting here. Gray Mandarin is a plus 185 underdog to Nick Lentz. That's a pretty close fight. Scott Holtzman's a plus 200 underdog against Alan Patrick. I think Alan Patrick will win, but that's a lot closer of a fight than I think the betting odds are giving it. Michelle Waterson's a slight underdog. That's interesting. And Conor McGregor's an underdog, a plus 150. So I would say Conor is the best underdog to bet on the entire card because there's nothing too crazy here. A lot of them I agree with. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe. For my next video, I might be able to get on my podcast sometime this week. I'm going to try to fit it in, but if I can't, it'll be on Tuesday next week. And the whole Fight Companion thing that I'm trying to do for Saturday, I'm still trying to work on it. I'm not super confident it's going to happen, but I'll keep you guys updated. I'll let you guys know by Friday. And again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.